Meridian, welcome to it right here on Cape Town TV. You are watching Conversations with Africa Unite, the show from Africa to Africans. I am your host, Lelethu Intombi Yomxhosa, and you will be seeing more of my face right here on Cape Town TV because each and every single week we will be giving you the lowdown on all things migration. Now, in studio, every single week we will be having a guest who will be helping us unpack all of those concepts that regard migration. And the reason for that is that we want to create a society that understands and is educated about these concepts so that we can be able to create social cohesion in our societies. Now, please do not forget to catch us on our social media pages. Join in on the conversations. On Facebook, we are Africa Unite. On Twitter, we are Africa Unite _ZA. And on Instagram, we are at Africa Unite. Now, today, I am very, very excited because it is our first episode. And we will be delving into some of the terminologies on migration. And we will be looking into some of the rights and responsibilities that come with all of these terminologies. And to help us unpack this, we have James in studio today, who is a lawyer. He is the head of advocacy at Scalabrini Center. He's also a legal advisor. And the reason we invited James today is to give us some explanations on all these terminologies, because it seems like people seem to misunderstand all these terminologies. We know there's refugees, there's asylum seekers, and there's all these different terminologies. Now, please just give us an understanding of all these common terminologies on migration and what different rights and responsibilities each and everyone has.
Well, great. Thank you to you and to the viewers. So you have, first up, a refugee. A refugee is somebody who is recognized in terms of our domestic refugee law and also in terms of international law.
Okay.
As somebody who falls within one of the three definitions of a refugee. So somebody who fled from persecution based on their political opinion, their race, religion, ethnicity, membership of a particular social group, their sexual identity, and their status unable and unwilling to protect such an individual.
Okay.
So this is what we often refer to as the 1951 definition.
Okay.
In terms of the 1951 Convention on Refugees, and it's an individualized claim. So if I or somebody fled persecution based on one of the listed grounds that I mentioned, that's somebody who's a refugee. The second possibility is somebody who didn't flee necessarily because of anything that happened to them as an individual, but because of a generalized set of circumstances. So foreign occupation, domination, or events seriously disturbing or disrupting to public order. So like if there's a war-torn situation or something like that in the country that causes somebody to flee, even though they weren't individually targeted, in terms of the Organization for African Union Convention, the OAU Convention, now the African Union, obviously, but 1969 it was OAU. Convention, it protects people from generalized violent situations when they flee. And then the third definition is merely somebody who is dependent on somebody who falls within one of those two first definitions.
So like a child?
Yeah, child, elderly, parent, anybody who is kind of dependent upon the individual who either fled from persecution or the person who fled because of the sort of war-torn or violent set of circumstances, civil disorder.
Okay, great.
Now, an asylum seeker is somebody who is seeking to be determined as a refugee, who's seeking asylum, seeking protection within a country. In terms of the Refugees Act, asylum seeker is defined not very helpfully, but as somebody who's seeking asylum. But all asylum seekers are potentially recognized refugees because they're all people who are seeking to fall within one of the three definitions and get protection as such.
So an asylum seeker would be someone who's still seeking status to become a refugee.
Exactly. So they're still in the process, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And would they have different or similar rights in terms of, things they can access and,
I mean, there's a very similar sort of set of rights that asylum seekers and refugees share.
Okay.
One other point in terms of terminology before I go into talking to the rights is to say that whether somebody is asylum seekers are seeking to be determined as a refugee, or somebody is a refugee, refugee status is occurs as soon as somebody falls within one of the definitions of a refugee.
Okay.
So from the
All right.
moment somebody comes across the border, having fled from their country, fleeing persecution or fleeing from events seriously disrupting to public order, they are an asylum seeker. They are a refugee. It's just for the declaration of that to catch up, and that comes in the form of being issued an asylum seeker visa at one of the refugee reception offices, and then in time, once the determination is made, refugee status certificate.
Okay.
Coming to the rights, so
just to cut you off there, James. So sorry.
worries.
So a migrant then would be anyone who is a refugee or asylum seeker, or is that a totally different term? Because I think a lot of people also then do not understand that term, the term migrant. So when we say migrant, who are we exactly referring to?
Okay, so migrant generally refers to a foreign national in the country who may or may not be a forced migrant, which is your refugee or asylum seeker.
Okay.
Somebody who was forced to flee their country, it would be a refugee, asylum seeker, but you also get somebody who perhaps has decided to come to South Africa to pursue their studies and gets a study visa, or somebody who has got critical skills and wishes to enter the employment market and is here on a critical skills visa. So those individuals are also migrants. So the term migrant incorporates asylum seekers, refugees, but other categories of migrant as well.
Okay, great. I think that makes a lot of sense. So migrant is more of a general term,
Yes, that's
without having to define and saying that they're a refugee, asylum seeker, or okay. Perfect. Can we just hold that thought? We're going to go quickly to the ad break. And James is not going anywhere. He's still here with us. After the ad break, we will be looking into some of the rights and responsibilities that each and every single one of the terminologies that James has spoken to us about. Please do not forget to look into our social media pages. Please join in on the conversation. Let us know what you think. As I've said, on Instagram, we are at Africa Unite. On Facebook, we are Africa Unite. And on Twitter, we are official Africa Unite _ZA. See you after the break. Welcome back right here on Cape Town TV. You are still watching Conversations with Africa Unite, and we still have James with us right here in studio. He is unpacking all things migration today, and he gave us all of the differences and the different terminologies on migration. Now we're going to delve into some of the rights and the responsibilities of migrants. And I think, James, I'm sure with the work that you do as well, you notice this, that a lot of people do not understand what rights they have in terms of migration. So a lot of migrants that come into the country do not really understand, what rights and responsibilities and what institutions are there to protect their rights, and as well as the rights of their loved ones. So could you please help us unpack that? So we spoke of asylum seekers, we spoke of refugees, and we spoke of migrants in general. Now, what are the rights that refugees have, and what are the key institutions that are there to protect them?
Great, thank you for the question. So that's a good point to start at. So recognized refugees have slightly more rights than asylum seekers. They have the right to formal recognition as a refugee, so that's your refugee certificate.
Okay.
They have the right to, after 10 years in the country, if they can show that they're going to be a refugee indefinitely,
Okay.
and they have the right to apply for permanent residence. They have a right to a ID document, like a ID card or ID book.
Oh, great.
Right? And they have a right to a travel document. And then, most importantly, they have all the rights contained in the Constitution, including all those set out in Chapter 2, the Bill of Rights.
Okay, great. So would that include voting and?
Okay, so where the Refugees Act in Section 27 talks to the rights of refugees. It says the individual, a recognized refugee, has all the rights set out in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, except those that are specific to citizens. So there are a couple of rights, and they're very, very few, but whether it's sort of holding public office or the right to vote, those are something that are even excluded from refugees.
So what happens then when they become a citizen? So after 10 years, right, you can become a South African citizen as a refugee?
So after 10 years, and this I would caution, because sometimes clients who come to us at the Scalabrini Center for advice think that it's default after 10 years that you get permanent residence, and then thereafter you would get citizenship. But it's only if you can show that you'll be a refugee indefinitely. So there's quite a high threshold. You have to prove that it's still dangerous, hazardous. You would still face persecution or face like a civil disorder, war-torn situation should you return currently, in order to qualify, in addition to having been a recognized refugee for 10 years.
Oh, okay.
So it's quite
you
a high
still
threshold,
have to apply again and go through the process.
And if you can't show that it's dangerous to return, then you run the risk of having a refugee status withdrawn and being required to return to your country.
Okay.
So that's quite. But if you do obtain permanent residence and then thereafter obtain citizenship after a further 5 years, then as a citizen you'll get those further rights: the right to hold public office, the right to vote.
Okay.
So those particular civil and political rights. Coming to asylum seekers don't have the right to a refugee travel document. They don't have the right to the ID book or the ID card. They do have a right to formal recognition as an asylum seeker in terms of the asylum seeker visa. They have all the rights in terms of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights insofar as they relate to asylum seekers. They have the right to lawfully remain in the country. They have the right not to be unlawfully arrested or detained. These rights are all set out in Section 27A of the Refugees Act.
Okay.
And so, as I say, as you can see, they're very similar.
Yeah, very similar.
They're also the one right that I didn't speak to with respect to refugees is refugees have the right to self-employment or to seek employment, the right to work.
Okay.
And that right is also extended to asylum seekers. So the asylum seekers have the right to work, the right to study in the country. There is a slight caveat that there may, in certain very limited circumstances, be the withdrawal of the right to work or the right to study for asylum seekers. But in practice, we see for the majority of circumstances, the asylum seekers are issued an asylum seeker visa that includes an endorsement with the right to work, the right to study. That's also in keeping with certain cases, like there was a case called the Wachanuka case at the Supreme Court of Appeal, which just supported and made it clear that the right to work should extend to asylum seekers. And then when it comes to migrants and their rights relate to whatever the terms and conditions of their visa are. So, for example, somebody who's here on a visitor's visa or temporary residence visa, visitor's visa, would not be have the endorsement with the right to work. So they wouldn't have the right to work. But let's say somebody who has a critical skills visa, then the right to work carries through. Right to study would be incorporated within a study visa.
Okay.
So yeah, it does depend on the terms and conditions. Yeah.
Okay, great. And now I know you work with all of those different people at Scalabrini. Now, please tell us more and tell the viewers more about the work that you do and the kind of services that you provide and where they can, get some help from Scalabrini.
Wonderful. So the Scalabrini Center of Cape Town is a non-profit organization that works with and alongside refugee and migrant communities. Our mission is to welcome, to protect, to promote, and to integrate people on the move, so include all migrants, including sort of seafarers, asylum seekers, refugees, migrants, within the local community. So, as I say, welcome, protect, promote, and integrate.
Yes.
And we do that through a variety of programs. So we have a advocacy program, which I head up.
Okay.
We have our employment access program that incorporates our Uplearn, which is a tertiary institution providing associate and bachelor degrees.
So you have your own tertiary institution?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the South New Hampshire University collaborates with programs around the world, including the Uplearn program at the Scalabrini Center.
Great.
To provide studies for an associate and then a bachelor degree within a series of course, a series of academic streams. So yes, we do have that there. In addition to which, our employment access program also incorporates our English school, which is very crucial in terms of integration, particularly from sort of Francophone Africa, where there's linguistic challenges. And then we have a well-being and development program, which incorporates our women's platform, our men's development group, and our welfare department. And then obviously sort of we have communications and internal departments. And then lastly, we have a child and youth care center in the form of Lawrence House. So those are sort of the various programs. When talking to our advocacy program, our aim is to protect and strengthen the rights of refugees and to ensure that there's no sort of discrimination against the communities, and we do that through various channels.
Okay, thank you so much for coming on to the show, James. Your website is scalabrini.org, right?
So our website is www.scalabrini.org.za. We're also available on Facebook as the Scalabrini Center, Twitter, Instagram, and we're situated at number 47 Commercial Street in Cape Town, and we receive, at least within the advocacy program, clients on a walk-in basis, Tuesdays through to Fridays in the mornings from 9 until 12.
Perfect. Thank you so much, James. There you have it, everyone. After the break, we are joined by Mr. Vincent Williams and Wonke Mapei from Africa Unite. Thank you so much to James for joining us today. Please do not forget to get in touch with us. Join in on the conversation on the terminologies as well as rights and responsibilities of migration. Now, please have a look at our Twitter. We are official Africa Unite _ZA, and on Instagram we are at Africa Unite. On Facebook we are at Africa Unite as well. We will see you after the break. Thank you. Welcome back. You are still watching Cape Town TV and you are still watching Conversations with Africa Unite, the show from Africa to Africans. Now, I'm very excited for my two guests right here on studio today. But before that, can you please remember to join in on the conversation on our social media pages? Remember, we are Africa Unite on Facebook, we are at Africa Unite on Instagram, and on Twitter, we are official _Africa Unite ZA. Now, today we have been talking about all the terminologies as well as the rights and responsibilities of migrants. We spoke of the different migrants that are in the country, including refugees as well as asylum seekers, and all of the rights and responsibilities that are attached to them. Now, we want to talk about solutions and we want to talk about a way forward. And to help us with this topic and in unpacking this, we have in studio the chairperson of the board of directors at Africa Unite, Mr. Vincent Williams, and we have a peer educator. He's a long-standing human rights activist. His name is Wonke Mapei. He's also from Africa Unite. Now, I know that Africa Unite does a lot of work with young people, youth empowerment, but also works with refugees, asylum seekers, as well as migrants in general and citizens. Now, please tell us more about some of the work that you guys do at Africa Unite in making sure that you change the narrative on migration, because I understand that a lot of people in the country tend to misunderstand migrants, and that is solely because of the media narratives and all of the narratives and stereotypes that we already have in the country. Now, how do we change this narrative, and what do you specifically do at Africa Unite to change it?
Thanks very much, Lelethu. Yes, I think you're absolutely correct. There are a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of misperceptions about migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. And typically, people talk about migrants as being involved in criminal activity, as stealing jobs. South Africa is not unique in this regard, I should say. I spend a lot of time in other countries, and you hear very similar expressions about migrants and what it is that they do. It's misinformation, or if not misinformation, at least misperception.
Okay.
Which, as you indicated, is often fueled not just by the media, but also the conversations that we have with each other. We tend to repeat these things without any substantive knowledge.
Yeah.
And the more we repeat it, the more true it becomes. There's no, for some of it, there's no real substantial evidence, but in our minds, and in some cases in our hearts, these things are true. So one of the things, and I'm sure Wonke will talk a bit more about this, but one of the things we've learned, and this is in fact when we started Africa Unite, to deal with this kind of misguided, if I may say, narrative, is to put people in contact with each other. And so when Africa Unite started, it was because there was conflict between young people, refugees, asylum seekers, and South Africans in your crossroads here in Cape Town. We spent time bringing them together to talk about why the conflict existed. And the more they talked, the more they realized that actually what they believed about each other was not correct. It was misinformed. And so it's important. Part of changing the narrative is not just to tell the stories or to engage the media, but contact between citizens, asylum seekers, migrants, and so on becomes critically
social
important.
dialogue,
Social dialogue, engagement, doing things together. And Wonke, when he speaks about the activities of Africa Unite, you can see that's what the purpose is. It's so people can get to know each other and begin to dispel the stereotypes and misinformation.
Oh, great, great. So it's in the conversation, and that's one of the reasons why we actually even named the show Conversations with Africa Unite, because we do believe that these conversations are very important and they help in curbing some of the stereotypes. So Wonke, as a young activist, as a young person, and what would you encourage other young people to do? What do you do specifically to try and change and shift those narratives and also fight the stereotypes on migrants?
I think first and foremost is to greet the viewers out there. But also, as Mr. Vincent had said, one of the things that we do is to create awarenesses and empower young people, which is one of the work we do as an organization, which is Africa Unite. Our role is to empower the disadvantaged communities and empower them in terms of the narratives that are out there. Not all refugees and migrants. Some of them are here to steal jobs, husbands, wife, girlfriends, and boyfriends. Some of them are here to render services that we as South Africans do not have. I'll give you a typical example about a program we have as Africa Unite called the skill sharing. Skill sharing, which is promoting social cohesion in a practical way, where non-locals will, in most times, do services that are scarce here in South Africa. Typical example, we have a problem in South Africa of lack of teachers when it comes to maths and science. But through the interventions of Africa Unite, we have an intermediate phase program that is operating in a school in Lelethu called Nobantu, which the tutor of the program in itself is a migrant. And is tutoring kids who are coming from the township. And from the tutoring that she has been doing in recent months, there is an improvement, and kids now are interested in doing maths and science, which was not the case before, because there was a time where kids in township communities were less interested of doing maths and science. And another typical example, a lady from Zimbabwe taught young women in Kraaifontein on how to make a homemade dishwash liquid, which is some of the things we are doing, which is closing the narratives and killing the narratives and the myths that non-locals that are here to take, and they are not here to give. There are those that are here to give and they render a service that we South Africans do not have. So as a young person is also to empower other young people, because our key component as an organization is to build human rights communities. And how do we do that, and what is our outcome? Our outcome speaks directly to to behavioral change, because we want people to change behaviors. Because for us to promote social cohesion, we must have a behavioral change where we want to live together peacefully, harmonious in all our communities.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's the work we do as an organization.
Wow, that's great. So it starts with conversations and then you go on to all of these programs that are meant to change the behaviors.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I wish we had more time to have this conversation, but thank you so, so much for joining us. Where can people get in touch with Africa Unite if they need, some assistance, if they want to be a part of the programs? Please just let our viewers know how they can get a hold of you.
We have 3 offices, but 2 here in Cape Town.
Okay.
We have one office that operates in Gugulethu that works with children who are coming from 7 and 17 years of age in terms of providing psychosocial support, which from kids who are infected and affected by HIV and AIDS, coming from domestic violence, and also child-headed households. And we have an office which is in 16th Street here in Cape Town also, which does human rights work. We have peer educators program that operates from time to time, where we do information sessions on human rights, and also we do programs in trying to advocate for human rights violation in different communities that we have here in Cape Town. So people can find us here in Cape Town in 16th Street, and also in our office that operates in Gugulethu that works with the disadvantaged communities in Gugulethu.
Okay, great. Thank you so, so much, Vincent and Wonke. Thank you for the information and all the insights. Thank you so much for joining us, to all the viewers at home. Please do not forget to join in on the conversation. We are at Africa Unite on Facebook, we are at Africa Unite on Instagram, and we are at official Africa Unite _ZA on Twitter. Now, please remember that each week we will be showcasing various programs and professions as well as businesses that some of the migrants in the country have been successfully able to establish. Now, through showcasing these initiatives, we are working on trying to remove all the stereotypes that Wonke and Mr. Vincent have spoken about. So please join me every single week as we go through this journey together. Thank you so, so much for joining once again. Nisale kahle makhaya.